It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented this week by Editorial, a Climax Stallion. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Glad to have you with us. Coming up, the road to the Kentucky Derby continues this weekend with the Fountain of Youth. That is a Derby Dollars contest race. We'll give our picks in a couple of minutes. But first, Ray, a headline out of the South China Morning Post caught our attention. It basically said, horse racing is for old people. And then it went on to talk about how popular poker is becoming with the younger generation in Hong Kong. We were a little surprised because of how crazy people in Hong Kong are about horse racing. Got us to thinking here, looking back on recent efforts. I'll throw the question to you. Is horse racing in this day and age for old people?
Who are you calling old, Scott? Huh?
Hey.
I think it depends on your definition of horse racing. Horse racing has become two or maybe more than two things. One is the day-to-day grind, the weekday grind, some of the weekend grind of races that attract the hardcore horse player. The other are the events. And the hardcore horse players, yes, they're mostly older people. The event-driven days are much more conducive to bringing in younger people. And by that I mean the Pegasus World Cups, the Breeders' Cup, Triple Crown races, Saratoga. There's a lot of events that are not centered strictly around making and trying to cash a bet.
Yeah, when I go to those events, when I go to those boutique meets, I look around me and I see a lot of young people. And I don't see an old crowd. There's a lot of vibrancy to it, and you get the feeling, horse racing is doing just fine. The issue, though, is that it's a sport driven by betting handle. And those are two different things. If you're attracting the social crowd, they're not necessarily going to turn into hardcore bettors. They're just not. So I think that racing needs a two-pronged marketing approach. One is to continue to encourage young people to enjoy the entertainment around racing. So going to these events, enjoying the village at Gulfstream Park. On the other hand, also promoting, I think handicapping tournaments are a great way to get those young people who are like the challenge of handicapping. And if you go to some of these tournaments, there's also a social element to them at the racetrack. People are enjoying it around each other, talking with each other, and at the same time learning to handicap and enjoying that part of it. So I think handicapping tournaments can be a way to help even things out while the crowd is being boosted for the social part of it.
I think there's another sport that I think has a similar challenge as horse racing, and that's golf. I went to the Honda Classic last week in South Florida, and I noticed two distinctly different audiences there at the tournament. I had a ticket to go into what's called the Bear Trap. It's a huge tent around one of the greens on the back nine, and it was a big ticket to get in there. Fortunately, it was a free ticket for me, but it cost a lot of money to get in there. And inside the tent were all these young people, and I don't think any of them cared about golf. They were just there. It was a big social event. They were there, to show off what they bought, to wear. And it reminded me a lot of going to a Triple Crown race, to be honest with you. But they weren't watching golf, and I doubt any of them were converted into, golfers or people that are going to go or that are going to stay home the next day and watch the tournament on television. But if you go outside of the tent, along the ropes on the fairways, you saw all these old people like me watching the golf tournament because they're interested in the game. Yeah. And I think horse racing has the same thing. We can charge people a lot of money to go to big events because they're used to paying it. The hardcore fans don't like paying it, but people are used to paying a lot to go to big events like the Breeders' Cup, Triple Crown races, that sort of thing.
I still think, I always go back to wanting the focus to be on the horse, and sometimes we get those personalities in the business, and I mean the equine personalities like a Zenyatta, like an American Pharaoh that grab everyone's attention and pull you in, and that's amazing, and we love those moments. You can't count on that all the time, though. So you might have more of a humdrum year where you get a few good horses, but they're not that California Chrome pizzazz. So, I think you do have to be realistic about how you're going to build the sport going forward. And I think you have to take into account what you're talking about. And I think tracks like the Stronach Group tracks are doing that. The Village at Gulfstream Park I mentioned, but they're also talking about doing it at Santa Anita, building some sort of complex around the racetrack. Laurel Park, same thing. That renovation is going to include restaurants and retail, I believe, with a train coming through. So horse racing is the backdrop, and you don't want to lose the focus on the racing and the horses, but you got to be realistic that for the younger crowd, you might need to make it more of an experience that isn't just about reading the daily racing form and throwing some money through the windows.
Yeah, and one of the problems for people that go once or twice a year to horse racing, they go to the Pegasus World Cup and they say, "Oh, this was great. When is the next big event?" And it's the Florida Derby in 6 weeks. Well, then what's the one after that? Well, it's up in Kentucky. And Gulfstream, because they're in business to make money for Gulfstream, they're not going to be promoting going up to Keeneland or going to Churchill. There's no cohesive marketing to get people to go to the next big event that may not be at your track. In golf, the next stop of the PGA Tour is marketed by the PGA Tour because it's in their best interest for the whole tour to get stronger and more successful, not just that one event.
Yeah, it seems like every Friday show comes back to the same theme, which is we need some sort of commissioner or league office or oversight to be more cohesive, because there are those links between events throughout the year that could, bounce from one to the next. You start with the Pegasus, and then you start promoting the key Derby prep races into Keeneland, into the Triple Crown, Saratoga, Del Mar, Breeders' Cup. It's throughout the year. There are those events, but we don't seem to have a cohesive marketing oversight, which, the PGA, it's all about their shield. So, I do hope that we can. I mean, there have been efforts. I mean, there are things out there that probably are doing a good job. America's Best Racing comes to mind. What do you think about this issue? Has racing been successful at attracting a younger demographic? Let us know with the poll on our website, paulickreport.com. All right, Ray, the Fountain of Youth is this weekend. It's not too late to sign up for the Derby Dollars contest and make a pick. Who's your pick?
My pick in the Fountain of Youth is the unbeaten Strike Power. Mark Hennig trains him. He's 2 for 2 at Gulfstream Park. He's yet to go around 2 turns. That's my biggest concern. But Gulfstream is a speed favoring track. We know that. And I think you need to be forwardly placed. He will be forwardly placed in the Fountain of Youth. I have no question about that. And I love to see horses in front. I'm a speed player. So I'm going with Strike Power.
He's going to have some company. I think the pace scenario is going to be pretty quick. And, Good Magic is a deserving favorite, but he's only got 1 win, and it was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This is his first start since then. Chad Brown is very good at getting them ready with workouts, before a race like this. So I'm sure he'll show up, but he's definitely a play against in my book. So I'm going to go for a little bit of an upset with a horse named Storm Runner, trained by Dale Romans. He's already had 4 route races. He's pretty seasoned for this point in the 3-year-old year. I think he's has the right running style, and I think he's poised for an upset in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. We've only had 1 race in the Derby Dollars contest so far, so get in on it. It's free. Sign up at derbydollarscontest.com and enjoy the rest of the road to the Kentucky Derby. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show, presented by Editorial, a Climax Stallion. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Climax Stallions introduces Editorial, a half-brother to Eclipse Award winner Uncle Mo.
This is an overwhelming performance by Uncle Mo.
Editorial was a tenacious winner of his second start.
Editorial's gaining. Wire's coming. Gonna be close. Editorial gets up.
And now stands his first season for just $3,500. For information, contact Sean Feld at 859-519-9665 or email climaxstallions@yahoo.com.